Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Talk. I'm Josh, and today we've got a really fun episode lined up for you. This week, Dave and I are just catching up on movies we've been watching lately, and let me tell you, it's quite the mix. Dave went on a bit of a classic kick, starting with Red Sonja, which, if you haven't seen it, is pure 80s sword and sorcery cheese, but honestly, kind of fun in its own over-the-top kind of way. Then he took things to the final frontier, with a couple of movies that couldn't feel more different from each other, but both are iconic in their own right. And to top it all off, he watched a documentary about Sergio Leone, which in itself sounds amazing. I mean, the guy basically redefined westerns, and Hollywood itself owes him a lot. Meanwhile, I've been hanging out in some weirder territory, films like Howard the Duck. After many years, and I've got thoughts. So many thoughts. I also revisited the Blair Witch Project, which still kind of blows me away with how raw and effective it is after all these years. And I wrap things up with Tremors because sometimes you just need Kevin Bacon fighting against giant underground worms, right? And we also start setting the stage for next week's episode. We're going to be talking about movies that make us cry. You know, the ones that just hit you right in the feelings, whether you want them to or not. So if you've got a favorite tearjerker, be thinking about it, because it's going to be a good one. And because we can't ever resist, we ended today's conversation with a little appreciation for the silent comedy legends. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, and a little Fatty Arbuckle mixed in there. It's crazy how these movies made almost 100 years ago are still just as funny and brilliant today. It's a full episode, a little bit silly, a little bit sentimental, and a whole lot of nerdy. Basically, everything we love about the movies. So let's get right into it. Welcome back to Real Talk. I'm your host, Josh, alongside my co-host,
Dave.
Hey, Dave. Today we're coming to you with nothing really structured on the agenda. We're just going to talk.
Isn't it always just us rambling on to each other about the movies that we've seen recently, or things that we think in our heads, or old memories we have about the? What's the difference? Topic, schmopic. Come on.
We usually come in saying, "Yeah, today." Well, like our last episode, we came in knowing that we were going to talk about TV. Where it goes from there, no one knows. But we have an idea. This time, we're just going to talk. We're just going to chit chat. So, brings us right in, Dave. What was the last thing or the last thing of note that you recently watched?
Well, first, I think I had asked you. There's a movie called Y2K.
Yep.
Very new, very very new. Which, you know, sometimes it's harder to watch new movies, but a lot of times I'll say if a movie just pops on, if it's on HBO or just happens to be on, because unfortunately I'm still one of the last like 600 people in the country who have cable. I don't know why, because I'm an idiot. But anyways, it just came on, so I decided I would check it out. It's made by, I can't remember the guy's name, from SNL. But anyways, it's basically a movie made by kids who grew up in the 90s, which is pretty close to my time frame. I mean, 5 years off. What's the guy's name? Kyle Mooney. But anyways, I think he's funny. I think he's got some stuff and chops and stuff. But the idea is that the Y2K thing happens, and the robots and stuff take over the world. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's silly. It's goofy. It's like, I think the robots accumulate other electronics to become one giant robot. It's dumb. But the slate of 90s references in it, it's entertaining enough. It'll hold my interest. It did.
I started watching it,
so you saw the only good part, which is like the first 20 minutes. I think
right, I watched right up until at the house party and everyone starts dying. And I didn't stop watching it because it was suddenly bad. I like a good cheesy horror flick. I'll watch Chopping Mall with everybody else.
Yeah.
I stopped watching it just because my wife does not like horror movies.
Yeah.
So she came home from whatever she was out doing. I think she was out with one of our daughters looking at wedding stuff, because that is what it is. See, it comes up naturally sometimes. Dave was curious if my family comes up sometimes, and it does accidentally. They were out doing whatever.
Family, you're in the family, right?
Well, hey,
That, not don't talk about that one.
Thank you.
That why you're in the witness relocation program? That's why you went to Idaho?
I'm in Idaho.
Nobody moves Idaho on purpose.
And they came home right as it starts to get bloody. And
Right.
I'm like, all right. And I turned it off. I will go back and finish watching it. However, that first 20, 30 minutes is, yes, these kids are all in high school. Dave and I would have been in our early 20s.
Yeah.
But
close.
We very much were close to this. These jokes, the references hit perfectly because that's exactly where we were at that time. Yeah. So it's well done in that meta late 90s, early aughts kind of way.
Yeah, and they maintain that throughout the whole thing. It's a fun watch. It's not a waste of your time if you don't mind a little time waste. But I wouldn't say go out and buy the DVD. Sorry, Kyle Mooney. I don't know. Did a first effort, I think, as far as his full feature film, and then I think he should be proud.
And
of
again, and it was produced by Jonah Hill, so it's got some name behind it.
It's not super bad. Let me put it that way. It's not Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen's, coming out.
But
for
go watch it it's on Max. That's where I watched it. It's on Max. So boost his streaming numbers. Go give it a view. It's an hour and a half. It's really not that long. It's not that big of an investment. But yeah, so that first 30 minutes, I really enjoyed it. I like the sudden switch from basically teen comedy into hardcore horror, because it gets bloody fast at that, just right then. But yeah, I enjoyed what I saw.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm
glad you saw the first 20. I think I even said at least watch the first 20 or so minutes.
I think your recommendation was it's good to have on the background, and then about an hour later, I get a text back saying, "Well, focus on the first 20 minutes, and then just let the rest be in the background." Right. I'm like, okay, perfect. And that's all right. That's perfect. That's perfect.
So, anyways, there's that. I think we talked recently about the difference in fantasy tales, sword and sorcerer, and dragon. And
sword and singular and those kind of things.
We both tend more towards the sword and shield stuff. But Red Sonja was on last night, and I know I didn't watch the whole thing, mind you. I don't think I've watched the whole thing since I was a kid, but it is not very good. Schwarzenegger's better than I remember, to be honest. I thought my recollection of him in all of those is that he's minimal dialogue. Because. And his accent's so thick you couldn't understand him, but it's not. He's pretty good. He holds his own.
No, he's better than Brigitte Nielsen.
Very much.
No, I like Red Sonja for two reasons. It is the epitome of so bad it's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Because it's there's nothing about it is high quality entertainment. It's fun. And second, it hits at a time when I was 7-ish years old when it came out. It was 100%. It was the Conan put down to PG. For me, it was made so that I could go watch this and not be an R-rated. So it's 100% where I and Ernie Reyes Jr. as the little kid, he's fun.
What is he from? I didn't dive on it, but
no,
I kept saying he looks so familiar, but I don't know if that's racist to say. Oh, no. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Ninjas, and he's in the original sequels to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 and 3. Okay. He's inside of the costume.
Well, I wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't know
in one of those two, and I didn't really. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, and I think I want to say he appeared in a few as the Asian transfer student in a few of those cheesy 80s, early 90s comedy TV
has that
shows.
Face that I kind of remember, but again, I was just really worried I was being
and he's fine. A little too yelly on rewatch. His character, character in that is really yelly.
Have you watched it recently?
3 or 4 years.
Plan on it. It just happened. No,
it's been 3 or 4 years since I've seen.
Okay, that's I consider that recent. 20 years is not recent.
Yeah, because we are old. We are old, so there's a range of recent. There's a range. No, it's again one of those things, and I say this a lot. I use streaming services much the way as we used cable. I just kind of thumb through things, and I'm like, oh crap, I haven't seen that in forever. Nothing else looks good. Let's watch that.
Don't you think though the algorithm? In that notion, the algorithm is kind of essentially choosing what you get to select from. I guess cable's directly telling you, this is what you get to pick from.
Right. And I'm sure there is something to that, but I don't watch a lot of sword and sandal type movies. So it
What?
would be weird that would pop up. But I do watch Commando every time it's on. I do watch Running Man every time it's on.
You didn't watch Rome on HBO?
No, I didn't watch.
Alluding to a
No,
previous episode of this show.
no, because I was watching Deadwood like real people.
Yeah, I it's not my favorite genre, but I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I did like Lord of the Rings. I thought they were too long.
Yeah.
But that's atypical. It's not a norm for me to find interest in. I mean, you like Willow, so I mean, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, because I know
do
you
like
Willow.
I do like Willow. Like Willow. Rest in peace, Val.
Yeah, rest in peace, buddy. So anyways, the Red Zone just happened to be on.
As a brownie. Kevin Pollak as a brownie. Willow.
Yep.
Anyway, Red Sonja. It is right up there with that so bad it's good entertainment for me.
There's this mission of mine. My wife, sometimes I think I'll ask her if she's seen something or if she's aware of something and she doesn't know. And it's something that I consider very universally known, like Ghostbusters, and she doesn't know it. But she does know Ghostbusters. That's just a terrible example, I guess. But something akin to that, something that's in that same vein. And so I always ask, like, where did she grow up? Like, what country did she come from? Like, how can she not know some of these things that I think are broadly accepted?
They'll go to school with Tom Hanks, though, right?
That's exactly that's her uncle, and he taught her at high school. Spanish. Actually, ironically, he doesn't speak Spanish. It was terrible.
That's a terrible inside joke to share.
Inside. But anyways, and so her brother is also a very big science fiction fan and everything else. And so I had always wanted to show her the movie Star Trek II, the original Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan.
It's, in my opinion, like, I haven't seen it in so many years, but it's quintessentially, it's supposed to be a good movie. I know I liked it as a kid, and I know that it's referred to as the better of all of them, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I had to make a pretty bold decision. She's never seen any of them, other than I had her watch Star Trek 4 because they went to San Francisco, like,
to search for nuclear vessels.
And it's funnier and just whatever, easier to watch, whatever it is. The decision was, do we just jump straight into Star Trek 2, or do I have her watch Star Trek 1? Now, I chose poorly, because we watched Star Trek 1, and it's first of all, I didn't really, it was like the director's cut of all things, which is 2.5 hours, I don't know. But anyway, it's too long, it's not, it's like, there were sequences that all of it should have been cut down by like 90%, like just stuff that the special effects are okay. I mean, it's what's his name? I can't remember Douglas Trumbull, doing all the special effects works and everything else. Like, famously did 2001, for Christ's sake. Like, it's good, not great, but good, whatever. But their focus on some of that stuff, as far as the long shots of the ship just in a docking station stuff, like I mean, I was hating it. And I'm not a Trek person either, but I was the one who was pushing for it. And then, anyways, we got about an hour and 10 minutes into it. And then I said, I'm just gonna fast forward, and we'll stop every minute and see what's going on with the movie. And that way we can say we got to the end of it. So I digress. So all of that led up to Star Trek 2, which I've been talking to her about for many years now, because I'm surprised she doesn't know it at all. Like, and I mean, like, they'll have a reference to somebody yelling Khan or something in a TV show or a movie, and she didn't know what that was, which I find surprising, because I think that is something everybody universally kind of knows or is familiar with. Maybe not this next generation, but somebody from closer to our generation should.
I think this new generation does, because isn't that what the reboot second or third movie was Khan?
Was it? No, I didn't know that. But I know they're familiar with the franchise and the people, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and as we were discussing before, little technological mishap. So we watched Star Trek 1. The intent was to get her to watch Star Trek 2. If anything else, it's because I wanted her to understand references that are around her that, show up in other TV shows and stuff like that. 1 is very boring. I knew that as a kid. I think I didn't like it as a kid. Whatever. Yada, yada, yada. So we go to watch the second one, which I remember being Oscar worthy. Not necessarily Oscar worthy, but very high caliber. It's not as good as I remember, but it's still good. I think by the people who love Star Trek. Like when we watched the first one, I explained to my wife, imagine if you were the original show was again. I'm not a Trekkie. My dad was, but I'm not. But the original show was on for like 2 years, right? Like a very brief window of time for this huge impact it had on everything. But I said, like, imagine if you were somebody who really loved the show and then it disappeared for 10, 15 years, and then all of a sudden the movie comes back. You probably would love these long dramatic shots of the ship and all that stuff. That's the first one. The second one, they actually have a little story into it and all that kind of stuff. If you don't remember, Ricardo Montalban is in it. You remember Star Trek 2?
And Star Trek 2, I remember that it was basically they took an episode of the original show and turned it into a full-length movie.
I didn't know that, so look at you.
Yeah, so there was a con episode of the original, and they turned it into the movie.
That probably would have explained the backstory that I didn't know when we watched the movie. It just felt like we were thrown into the middle of their story, but it was okay. I didn't mind it. Ricardo Montalban, was he in the original show? Was he originally playing him? Who knows?
That's outside of my knowledge base. Yes.
Even if we speculated at it, somebody would be mad at us because it's a protected industry. Star Trek's like Star Wars, but which we're gonna get some rabid hate.
Yeah,
things we've said about Star Wars, but I digress. But anyway, so Ricardo Montalban, famous actor. I think that was the actual impetus for why to watch it. That moment was we watched. I can't remember an old movie, and I said, "Hey, oh my God, it's Ricardo Montalban. As a young, very good-looking man." Anyways, and so that's where I said we have to watch Star Trek 2.
It was you watched her Velasquez Deplane.
No. But
you want to watch rerun?
Anywho, no. Fantasy Island, right?
There you go. I was going to call it Treasure Island. I got it wrong, so I just.
Which came first, The Man with the Golden Gun, the James Bond movie, or Fantasy Island? Because they're both basically stealing the same idea, the eccentric guy on an island.
The Man with the Golden Gun was just ahead of it.
I think so. And then Love Boat came out, and they're like, "Hey, let's just do that.
Hey,
let's stick them on an island with a little person, who's a full alcoholic." But anyways, so we watched Star Trek 2. Ricardo Montalban, he's in like his 70s, but if you watch this thing, first of all, the all of the bad people or the antagonists of the movie wear these low-cut V-neck things with their chest plates or chest like just exposed, and Ricardo Montalban's like 65, 70, and I guess the speculation for many years is that he was wearing some apparatus to mimic it, but it's not. I guess he works out a lot. Like the guy was ridiculously good looking and ripped. Like his chest looked like a bodybuilder all oiled up.
Yeah.
Now,
was 60,
does that fit?
63.
60 still. Does that fit with the Star Trek universe to have bodybuilder guys looking like they come straight from the beach and all tan and sweaty and oiled up and glistening, glitter on their skin and, lifting weights? I don't know. But, good movie. There's some fun stuff in it.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm glad my wife got to see it. It's funny the stuff how I remember it being different than, or maybe better, maybe not. I don't know, just different than it actually ended up being. But everybody should see it. There's jokes. Literally the next day, we were watching, I think, an episode of Family Guy or something akin to that, and there was a reference that was directly copying verbatim dialogue and a whole scene where they show like this cave that grows organically and all these kind of things. Anyways, and I said, that's what I mean. Like it is verbatim the dialogue from that movie. They know what they're doing. So I don't know. Good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, worth the watch.
Sci-fi is always also very tricky for me.
Hit or miss for me. Yeah. And I will tell you, just so that we don't take any hate, Ricardo Montalban was Khan in the original show. He was, so I got that. So
well, that's good to know.
Same guy.
He's Ricardo Montalban. And he has
he's Ricardo Montalban.
Fun sounding name.
It is a great thing to say. Just try it out. I promise if you're out there, just say it to yourself. You'll smile.
So if, not to spoil it, but there is an ending to Star Trek 2. that is also infamous and
Yes.
people remember. It's made jokes
Well,
and
that there's a reason why part 3 I think was called The Search for Spock.
correct, yeah, and it's an emotional ending. Like I to be honest, I teared up, but I do that a lot. We'll talk about that later. But I know that jokes about that scene and some of those scenes and stuff have been made in like episodes of Seinfeld and some other cartoons and things like that my wife knows. She now gets them, but the second one didn't inspire us to say, like, let's watch the next one, even though it leaves on a cliffhanger, like, you should check out the next one. It's important. We didn't. So, I don't know. I don't know. I like my sci-fi really dark and alien and
I love Alien. Dark City was a really good one for me.
Dark City, what is that?
It's late 90s. What's the guy?
Just kidding. Is that Keanu Reeves?
It's not Rufus Sutherland and Rufus Sewell.
Okay. Right.
That one's, I really like that one, but it's much darker. Yeah, it's much darker.
I don't know.
It's an Alex Proyas. Are you familiar with Alex Proyas?
No. I know
Alex Proyas. He did iRobot.
Okay.
And The Crow. So he's definitely on the darker side. Dark City I think is better than iRobot. I like The Crow, but it's better.
It's dark. The cinematography is a choice. It's kind of like Batman, the original Batman.
The original Tim Burton dark.
I like light and colorful, like Phantom of the Paradise with Garrett Graham, that kind of a thing. Like,
exactly.
Dark, but not too dark. Not so dark you're like, you can't tell what's going on.
Right.
But I digress. So anyways, Star Trek 2, we watched recently with intent. Like I had to seek it out. It's on Paramount Plus. I think all of them are. I don't know why the first one is the only one they have a director's extended version of, because it didn't need it. I don't know, but
bit of trivia for you there. The Star Trek the Motion Picture, directed by Robert Wise. Robert Wise, far more famous for doing still longer, but musicals. West Side Story, Sound of Music, Robert Wise. So let's bring the musical guy in here and do the Star Trek. I mean, maybe they were going for a space opera?
He, what did I just watch? Where else did Robert Wise direct? He was around for a long time, right?
Andromeda Strain, or Andromeda, something like that. I only ever remember the musicals, but yes, he was forever. He was around forever.
I had just watched a Robert Wise movie before I watched Star Trek, not completely understanding that I was connecting the two. I'm trying to remember what
Audrey
it was.
Rose, The Sand Pebbles. Oh, The Haunting?
No. It's a good movie.
All right. That is Run Silent, Run Deep. He's done a lot of really good.
I'm sorry. Robert Wise directed a movie called The Setup. That's what it was. Now, if you're not familiar, which is, I happen to have watched that before Star Trek, not realizing Robert Wise directed Star Trek.
Yeah.
The Setup was a lot of the inspiration and the sequencing of the fight scenes and everything else. It's a boxing movie about the corruption in the boxing industry.
And one of the most beautiful.
Like my wife's listening, she doesn't know, so I'm telling her. It's like Scorsese used a lot of that as inspirational material for Raging Bull. It's been used a lot. It's very gritty. It had two actors in the big final boxing scene who were actual boxers, like people who had actually competed before. Even though they were actors. Robert Ryan, right? I think is the lead.
Yeah,
a good movie. Dark, seedy. It's noir as much as there's anything else. But the funny thing is, like I said, I happened to watch that because it was on. And then 2 days later, here I am watching Star Trek The Motion Picture and complaining about how bad it was directed. So, what is that going to tell you? I don't blame it all on him, though. He's a good director.
No, right. I mean, he did some great stuff. I mean, shortly after that, the movie, The Setup, he does maybe one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies ever in The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
where Klaatu Barada Nikto comes from, for those of you Evil Dead nerds out there like me. But yeah, he did some really, really great movies, won an Academy Award for West Side Story. He's just didn't work with the Star Wars thing. Didn't work.
Star Wars, don't do that. People get
Star
mad.
Trek. Wow, I just got by two whole groups of
some hate mail from our one listener.
I'm sorry.
I think, again, as I explained it to my wife, I think it makes the most sense that fans who were in love with the show and sad to see it go would have been thrilled to see anything on the screen, even if it was just an image of this thing flying through space. I think that part is understandable. But anyways, 2 was good. It's quick. It's shorter than I expected it to be, than I remember it being, and a little less emotionally impactful, except for the very end. But, that's the Robert Wise things. I don't know. That's, again, I'm not huge Star Trek. Like, my dad loved them. I've probably seen most of the episodes of the original show from when I was a kid through my dad watching them. But
my dad was more of a Next Generation guy.
Right. And I think, I watched the same.
He'd watch them both, but Next Generation was more the favorite.
Do you think it was our dads, that generation, who were just hoping for a better utopian world? And so all these versions of these sci-fi shows were very clean.
That was
Blade Runner is a little less, a little seedier,
Which is why it's probably more on style. It's our speed. We're just like, we're resigned that the future sucks. And our parents are like, I'm hopeful.
When somebody talks about Star Trek, a big fan, a lot of times one of the first things they'll say is like, "Oh, it's a world without money." Like, as if like that's their first thought of it. It's utopia. It's we don't need money, but people still have whatever. But I digress. I'm not gonna go over and dissect the reality of Gene Roddenberry's creation. So it is what it is. But anyways, those are a couple things I watched. I don't know, what have you been watching?
So along the lines of just oddball stuff, like you didn't love the motion picture, I, for some reason, decided to watch Howard the Duck.
Oh, love it.
And it was just as cringy, just as difficult to watch as I remember it being as a kid.
Loved it as a kid. It had pictures of duck boobs.
But that's the opening scene.
For absolutely no reason, they interject some nudity into this movie that's really made for kids,
And that's the opening scene. That's just him falling through the portal.
Yeah.
But then he comes to Earth, and then there's this really weird, like, they try to create this relationship between Leah Thompson's character and Howard.
Yeah.
Like they're playing the music off each other and the rock concert. It's just I don't know what George Lucas was thinking, but it was
sexy kind of scene. I know it's the best Leah Thompson's ever looked in film. For my
she does look good. She had that punk rocky Cyndi Lauper thing going on.
She's in her underwear in a scene. It's all good.
Yeah.
But it's still awkward. Like it's still a little person in a duck suit. But I don't know. That's that. How did that movie? It's a comic, right? Which I didn't.
It was originally a Marvel comic. Yeah,
and it's
I didn't know.
Seedy comic. Like it's a comic that exists, I guess. And again, I only know this because friends of mine know these things and they tell me. But also because Howard the Duck makes an appearance in, what is it, Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah. Yes.
Tiny little cameo or whatever, right? And he's like, he's the character that movie should have done, which is dark.
Yeah. Dark. Yes.
R-rated. And all those things that the original
it needs to go down that it needs to go down that Ryan Reynolds Deadpool kind of
very much. That would have been a totally different movie. I don't know what George Lucas is, I'm
what
he didn't put Ewoks in it or something.
He might have, who knows.
He probably did. The director's cut's coming out soon. Speaking of director's cuts,
coming up. And then Howard the Duck. So you watched Red Sonja. I watched Howard the Duck, getting that so bad it's good vibe, except there's no good about Howard the Duck. And then I watched a few other movies, but I think the one that I would focus most on here, that I had not seen this movie since 1999 when I watched it in the theater, and that's Blair Witch.
Oh, you said that a while
And
ago.
I sat down and watched it, and looking back on it, and knowing that everything I know about it, it was the first real internet campaign and backstory and all that. Even without all of that, this movie holds up. It is done so well. Those three characters, Heather, Josh, and I just lost the third guy's name, but those three are so believable in that creepy stuff is happening. I'm lost in the woods. I'm tired. I'm cold. They were so well done, so believable. Yeah, it was.
The whole kicking the map in the river thing didn't bother you, because that always stuck in my craw.
No,
It
no,
just
because
stuck in my craw just as much as
yeah,
Howard the Duck should have been cast in that movie. But anyways, I'm sorry, keep going.
though watching it and watching Heather Donahue in the camera giving her weepy, so scared speech.
The infamous scene.
I even watching her do it, all I picture is Anna Faris and her snot coming out from Scary Movie.
Bubbles and what the Wayans, the brilliant Wayans did to it.
They did. And the Blair Witch, it really does hold up. The original is still very, very well done.
That's good to know.
I like it.
It's not. It's 30, 25 years, right?
20 going on 26. Yeah.
Up on I was in North Carolina, and I took a first date to that movie. I didn't know the girl that well, and she was very good looking.
And you never went out again, did you?
No. I don't think she liked it, which is not surprising. I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't quite the film geek then I am now, but I very distinctly remember the end of that movie. This lady behind us in the middle of the theater standing up very loudly and saying, "I want my money back." And I looked at my date, and she thought that was funny, and she goes, "You think we can get your money back?" And I was like, "Oh." Like, I didn't necessarily like it. I wasn't in love with it, but I liked it. At least even then I had an appreciation, having seen Clerks and stuff, for experimental filmmaking.
I saw it in the theater when I was in the Marines, and I had read I wasn't big on the internet back then, but I had read I don't remember if it was one of the big magazines, like a Time magazine or something, actually did a whole in-depth thing about the true story of the Blair Witch. Like, they set it up like this was real.
It was
so I went in.
Campaign.
Yeah, it very much so. So I bought into it. I was into it. I actually watched it on back to. I want to say it was. I watched it on back to back with another movie. So on Friday we watched one, Saturday we watched the other, and it was I either watched Rushmore or Gods and Monsters. Both are great movies, but that's what I saw in theaters at the time. But yeah, Blair Witch Project, I highly recommend it. I think it holds up even without the viral, real, true story campaign behind it.
I didn't know the marketing campaign. I wasn't savvy enough to be on the internet. The only thing I knew was somebody showed me how to look up porn. Very slowly, line by line, it would appear on the screen. And so that was pretty much the extent. I didn't know what email was, I don't think, or at least not very well. But I didn't know all of what would have been at the time Reddit style streams and the viral sensation they were creating. Brilliant marketing stuff. So I went into it cold, not knowing anything about that, just that it would look like a fun, interesting movie to take a first date on. But I found out later, and I thought I had more respect for it because of what these guys, again, I was just at that point becoming the person who said, it would be awesome to be a filmmaker. Like, that was just at that point where I was like, what a cool career. What a way to go. And so to see somebody who snaked their way in like Kevin Smith did with credit cards, like, and found some avenue, great. I love it. You know what I mean? Good for them. Napoleon Dynamite, there's 1,000 of those stories out there. But anyways, I had more respect for it. I haven't seen it in 26 years, I don't think. So, you know,
it was the first time I'd watched it in that 26 years. But I really liked it. Speaking of Napoleon Dynamite, doesn't he have a new movie getting ready to come out?
John Heater or the creator guy?
Jared Hess.
Yeah, he just did. Didn't he do Minecraft?
Is that what it is? Is that what I'm thinking of? It could. Yeah. I think you're right.
So Minecraft is this weird thing that bounced around Hollywood, starting with Rob McElhenney, right? Of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Fame. He's he was the original concept creator, and he starts writing it, and I think either the studio didn't like what he was doing, there were too many F-bombs in it, whatever it is, I don't know, too much yelling at each other like in the show. I'm just kidding. He's a super great creative, but whatever it was, they took it away, and his name was on there for a long time. If you were IMDb or following it, it would say as one of the co-writers. They just got rid of him.
He's gone now.
I don't know. I wish I grew up with Minecraft. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like
I don't get it.
I played SimCity.
Me too.
Like
I played the
nothing version compared to what these kids have, which is amazing. I'm glad their creativity to you know.
And I hear good. I like it. Dynamite, Nacho Libre. I love those movies. But yeah, I'll watch Minecraft when it comes out on a stream or somewhere. Yes.
You're pulling away from your mic sometimes, and it gets really quiet. Like I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Just so you know, just FYI. I want to throw that out there.
FYI. So, hey, producers and editors, watch for this and cut it out.
So speaking of Jared Hess, right? It was two Jerusha Hess and Jared
Jerusha
Hess.
Is this
brothers, husband, wife?
It was husband and wife.
Okay, it might be. I don't really remember. Napoleon Dynamite was
Jerusha
shot.
Is his wife.
Okay, it was a shot out of a cannon. It was. I understood it. I got it right away. I loved it. I thought I understand. Even if it's weird, it's all these other things. Loved it. I know it took a little time for people to identify what it was, I guess, because it's different. And to appreciate it for that. But anyways, they shot out of a cannon. And then I don't know if I've seen much, at least that I've cared for since then. Like I didn't see Nacho Libre. Did you?
I did. I like Nacho Libre. I thought Nacho Libre was really good.
I should watch it.
It was Jack Black when he was not overly saturated.
Yeah. Not Minecraft.
And then he did
Jack Black.
Right. So Napoleon Dynamite, Nacho Libre, and then he did something called Gentlemen Broncos that I didn't see.
I did see that. Actually, now that I think about it, because it's got Jermaine in it.
Yeah.
From Flight of the Colors. Damn it, Brett. Yeah. No.
Brett.
It's a really strange.
He did a bunch of episodes of Last Man on Earth.
I did see that show a lot too. So I guess I shouldn't say I've seen quite a bit of what he was continuing to work on. I don't know. I didn't grow up on Minecraft. I think my understanding from the youngins around me is that some of them are very unhappy with the idea that they're taking Minecraft and making it into a movie in the first place. I don't know. I imagine it would have been how I might have felt about some of the stuff that I grew up doing. You know,
like
what I mean?
Super Mario Brothers with Bob Hoskins as Mario
and
Leguizamo.
Yeah, what a weird casting choice.
Yeah,
what a strange. It's almost like that's just a
huge John Leguizamo fan, huge Bob Hoskins fan. But those two in those didn't. It just doesn't work.
No.
Didn't work.
It was a silly movie. It was silly. It was bad. It was like the Garbage Pail movie. Where you think, why did they? There's a whole podcast. How did this get made? And that fits in that category. Like they shouldn't have done this in the first place. You know?
And that's a movie I watched in the last year or so. Garbage Pail Kids. I watched it.
No, you
about year and a half ago. Yeah, I even did an episode.
You got the one copy of it from the video store that still has a copy.
It is god awful. There is like nothing redeeming about that movie.
I loved the cards as a kid. Huge.
The cards were great.
Yeah.
The show. Mackenzie Austin.
I'd love to have my old card collection. Just flip.
Whole
episode about it. But anyway,
of Atomic Rod with his head blown. Or whatever. Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
So great. And my parents hated him, so.
There's always that.
But yeah, I remember seeing the movie as a kid. It's absolutely god awful.
Mm-hmm. And then I did watch one other movie, just because I don't know. I go on this thing like I think Kevin Bacon is like for as everywhere as he is, and I think he is he's great. So we had talked about last week or the week before. I don't remember. Recently, we talked about Fred Ward as Remo Williams.
Right.
I ended up watching Tremors.
Okay.
Because of that, and that movie is so good.
Love it.
comedy, the horror, everything about it is just so good.
It was the right tone. Good.
100%. I love that movie. So there's what I've been watching. But that leads me to something that we started talking about.
Well, I did watch one more thing.
Oh, go, please.
Which,
talk to me.
There was a documentary that came out like a year ago. Actually, I watched two more things. One, I watched Gregory Peck in a movie called Shootout from like 1971, which is, I think they call it the follow-up to The Gunfighter, which if you haven't seen The Gunfighter, absolutely amazing. Gregory Peck, I love him to death. I would probably have married Gregory Peck if I was gay back then, but he's always the greatest dad ever because of, Mockingbird, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they say it's a follow-up. I don't know if it was. It's a little boring, but I did watch a documentary on Sergio Leone. Sergio Leone, the Italian who invented America, is what it's called. It came out last year, I think. Been meaning to watch it, and I finally sat down and I watched it. First comment is, I love Sergio Leone's movies. I understand them, and they fit into. They were the reason I think I could find westerns accessible again. And it's again, like I always say, the guys were unshaven, their clothes are ratty, they had bad teeth, like all of the other stuff, besides the fact that his visuals, we all know it, but that last 20-minute sequence of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is probably one of the most beautifully shot and scored pieces of film in history, in my opinion. But anyways, so there's this documentary made by his daughters. It's very good. And they interview a bunch of other directors, and they go through movie by movie, starting with his first movie, Colossus of Rhodes, which is the only one I haven't seen. I have this habit of not watching the first movies for directors for some reason. That one's not supposed to be all that good, but like Danny Boyle, I love him to death. One of my all-time favorite directors. I love his style of one in each genre, but I still haven't seen Shallow Grave, right? The Shallow Grave. But anyways, I digress. So I haven't seen that one, but they go movie by movie and they interview several different directors throughout the piece. They have Martin Scorsese, they have Steven Spielberg, and I'm talking like prominent. The whole thing is just these guys talking and then showing clips of the movie. Quentin Tarantino, Darren Aronofsky, who was probably my favorite director because he emotionally gets to the heart of me and makes me cry all the time. Another story. But I did notice when I was watching it, and I was like, well, what they don't have is like shitty directors. There's no Brett Ratner. There's no Michael Bay. Like, they even have, I can't remember who else they had, a smaller director, I can't remember, but somebody of substance, somebody that I like, that I think is a good director and makes good productions. And I thought there are 1,000 different people who would love to have been asked to be in this documentary, other directors like Brett Ratner or, James Cameron, I'm a little surprised wasn't, but I guess it's not known for his visuals, maybe as much as his storytelling. I don't know.
He's really good at sequels.
But he's really good. Titanic 2 is going to be amazing.
Resurrection.
Right, the Resurrection. He's going to bring it back up with that sub. And that sub that imploded is going to come up with it. Oh, too soon. Soon. It's got Sergio Leone, the Italian who invented America, is very good. If you're a fan...
Yeah, I'm look for
it. It goes through the whole thing. They talked to Ennio Morricone a bunch, who did all of the scoring, of course. Some of the most iconic film scoring. It's funny, Steven Spielberg has this comment where he's talking about Ennio Morricone doing the score, and he goes, I don't think there's ever been such a great collaboration between a filmmaker and somebody doing the music. And this is Steven Spielberg saying that to the camera about Ennio Morricone and Sergio Leone, and I literally, my wife looked at me and she said, "What, does he not know that he worked with John Williams?" Like, it's incredible. But that's, I'm guessing, humble. That's how Steven Spielberg truly views it. But highly recommend you check it out. If I know you like Sergio Leone, but it's insanely good, and it makes you already know how important. And I just watched Once Upon a Time in the West like 8 times over the last 2 months because it just happens to be on all the time. But what's funny is the very next day after I watched the documentary, Inglourious Basterds was on. And Tarantino spent so much time talking about all the visual notes and things that he had taken from Leone. And then that first 20-minute sequence is literally just like he probably thought, how would Sergio Leone have directed this whole thing? And that's where we get to. I only bring all that up because I just think that's the best thing I think I've watched in the last, I don't know, probably couple of months. It's super good. Great.
I'm gonna look for it. I did check. It's not currently, as of recording, streaming anywhere, but I'm gonna do some see if I can find it somewhere. But yeah. So speaking of documentaries, this gets us to kind of. Oh yeah.
How is it we live in a world where something is not available to stream? I know it's a rights issue. I get that.
I know. Yes, but
isn't
no,
there
you're
some
right.
service that'd be like, well, we'll let you watch it, and just give us $20 and we'll give it to the people who made it. Like,
Right.
I don't understand how technology's gotten so much farther that we can't
Right.
watch stuff.
Cocoon cannot be watched anywhere, and it's Cocoon. Like, why? It shouldn't be that.
It shouldn't be harder than it was 25 years ago.
Yes.
There shouldn't be a fight over every right for streaming rights for everything. And some stuff you have to buy the DVD. I tried to get this Monty Python. I couldn't find this documentary they did, the 6-part documentary, which is brilliant on Monty Python. They have a shorter version you can stream, but it's not the same. It's very different.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense where we live in that world, but
yeah. Oh no, you're 100% right. And so speaking of things that we can't get a hold of, we are of an age where you can't do that on television. Was the most irreverent piece of comedy for a child of our age. And you can only watch the first season streaming on Paramount Plus. The rest of it is not available. Yeah, so you can see Really Young Moose and all that, but it's only the first season. You can't see anything after that. And it's really disappointing when there are those things that are, especially things like that are so
iconic,
inspirational or iconic or such major parts of a whole generation growing up. Really,
even recent shows. I watched a television show called Wrecked that I absolutely thought was hilarious about a plane crash and they're on an island. I loved it. I thought it was so funny.
I watched that one.
You can't find it anywhere. It's not available.
No.
And I think how is that not available?
We mentioned it in the last episode, the TV show Brink. I can't find it. It's never been released on DVD. It's not streaming anywhere.
And it's an HBO show. How does HBO not have it? But
exactly.
The people behind the Brink, by the way, I can't remember his name. Comedy director Jay Roach. It's his show, which is brilliant. But anyways,
Jay Roach.
The Brink, you can buy it on YouTube because that's where I finally found it. I bought the
and I did find that you can also buy the whole first season. It's only one season. You can buy it on Amazon Prime now.
Oh, you can now?
As of my last look, which was
okay. Well, when my deep digging, I couldn't before, but I don't know. It's disappointing, and
it is. It
is a brilliant little thing that came out of Canadian public television, right?
Yeah,
they just had this little weirdo show.
So weird. It is so weird.
They still talk about slime on Nickelodeon or whatever. Like that's still their logo.
Don't say water.
Yeah.
Oh, don't say that substance or whatever. Yeah, it's such a touchstone. Such a touchstone. Speaking of, so we were talking earlier this week in prep for today. HBO has a new documentary. I think it's a 2-part documentary that's going to be coming out on Paul Rubens, where they culled I want to say 40,000 hours of interviews and footage to create this documentary.
He's a very reclusive person.
So the recording and the making of this documentary started before he died. He wanted to set the record straight. He wanted to let everyone know the real Paul Rubens, because all that's really out there is rumor and suggestion because of what he got in trouble.
Which is masturbating in a theater?
Masturbating in an adult theater during a sting operation where somebody had ratted them out, so there were cops there. It's not okay. That's a bad thing to do. It's not worth losing your career over.
It's not Harvey Weinstein, for Christ's sake.
Precisely. He wasn't at an elementary school. Right. He wasn't at an elementary school. He wasn't doing... He was in an adult...
He wasn't dressed as Pee Wee Herman.
He wasn't.
Very much different to the point where his
mugshot was so different. Face.
People thought they were astounded. That was the joke, was that his goatee and all that stuff. Like, look, this guy.
Yes.
He wasn't... It was... And I don't know. It's an absolute disgrace and a shame how quickly that toppled him. I think in that doc, there's trailer out there for it, but in the
There
trailer,
is.
I think he says something akin to in the 1980s goes, there was nobody. It was you couldn't be anybody better than Pee Wee. Like it was the best time ever to be Pee Wee Herman. Like nobody else on the planet was as popular as Pee Wee Herman in essence.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it literally all came crashing down
overnight.
one day.
Yeah, there was a point in time in the 80s where Paul Rubens would not go out in public unless he was in full Pee Wee persona. He lived it every minute of his public life. If he left the house, that's who he was. This documentary is all about
kids.
Yes, absolutely.
The character was designed in an irreverent adult way. Like that's where it stems from, but I think he immediately saw the impact it could have on helping kids grow.
And there's something so freeing about being in touch with that inner child. And Pee Wee allowed children to stay children and allowed adults to look at things with a childlike reverence.
And as he says in the doc, also in the trailer, which is that he wanted kids to know it was okay to be different.
Yes,
that was the whole 100%. Point of everything that he did was just to be different.
Mm-hmm. Just to be different. And so again, we are of an age where Paul Rubens, specifically Pee Wee Herman, was very important in our growing up. So talking about this documentary, and there's one thing that Dave and I are both certain of: we're going to cry.
Yeah, you sent it to me. I think I sent you a trailer for a Mountainhead Jesse Armstrong HBO movie. It looks great, brilliant, and apt.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Love Steve Carell.
Sent me Pee Wee, and I mean, I think I immediately saw the trailer, and I'm started tearing up a little bit watching this tiny little. Yes. It's not even a trailer; it's a teaser. But just thinking about the emotional impact it probably would have, but also that it was already having. I tear up.
So that brings us to what I think, or Dave and I think, we're going to do for the next show, because there are so many different reasons to get emotional. They're all valid, and you know what did Pee Wee said? It's okay to be different. It's okay to be strange. I think it's okay for grown fat men to cry. So what I would like to do is spend the next week before our next episode, and let's bring up our top 10 emotional moments, the top 10 movies that made us cry.
That move you, that make you cry.
That move you.
I think you'd be surprised by some of the ones that.
No, and that's just what that's just it. This isn't always going to be things like this one did not make me cry, but it is emotional for some people. Untamed Heart, where Christian Slater has like the heart that keeps growing and he dies.
Yeah, Titanic.
It doesn't have to be something like that. I have cried for happy tears in a movie. I have cried sad tears in a movie. So
I've cried at commercials. So I cried at a teaser.
It's Sarah McLachlan and puppies. Damn it! I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, I think that's sticky. See, that honestly doesn't move me. That just makes me really sad. The things that move me, and this one won't be on the list, but are things like that are truly human, like the movie The Whale. That's an easy one.
I really like that. That's an easy one. I'm not going to go for low-hanging fruit, but it is things like that where it's a very human feeling. This man who just longs to be a part of something and was kicked out of the thing he was a part of. There's real human emotion in it. That's what I'm talking about with something like this. So I would love to break that down.
The trajectory of Paul Rubens and his decline and how he was rebounding enough at the end of his career and the end of his life where I think he was moving past it, but I don't think he ever really moved past it because he was
never completely. But he did. One of the last things that came out before he died was the reboot, the Netflix original Pee Wee Herman movie, the new Pee Wee movie, and I love that. It wasn't as good as Tim Burton's Pee Wee, but it was great to see that character relevant again. Yeah. So for me, like, that's the kind of thing that could make me cry. Seeing somebody get back to them again, and just being happy.
Yeah, somebody, getting their comeuppance. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. It can also just be anything that moves you. I'm not sappy. I might, even if I might cry at a love scene in a movie or something, or some emotional reconnection scene or something.
Yeah.
I think
Oh
it'd
yeah.
be surprising which ones actually hit me. I think it's
Hmm.
mostly, in my opinion, about the creator behind it, the director, the performances. I think hitting those notes right, I think, can catch me even in surprising times. And the funny thing is, I have no problem saying and crying and tearing up, but even when I do it, it's just my wife and I on the couch. I find myself pretending like not pretending like I'm not crying, because I'll tell her like, "Oh yeah, I'm bawling my eyes out over here," but still like trying to hold back more than if I was by myself. What is that?
Hmm.
I guess that's stuff we're gonna have to kind of open up and discuss and stuff, and figure
Yeah,
out,
we're gonna have
is
to
that
get. We're
something
gonna
with me?
get.
Because I'm okay with it. She's okay with it.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I guess there's
I,
some discussion to be had there.
there is, and I think it's perfect timing because I'm excited for this documentary. The minute the first episode drops, I'm gonna watch it. Um, and that's another thing that both of us are way into documentaries that go behind the curtain and show us the human side of the things we kind of put on a pedestal, like a Sergio Leone, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That being said, anything else coming up that you're wanting to watch?
Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know about you, but I often am just checking trailers. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
see
I
what
do.
movies are coming up and about and all those kind of things like that.
Yeah.
There's still so many fantastic and iconic movies from the last 100 years that
Yes.
it's hard for me
It,
to justify watching, Snow White.
yeah. Right. Yeah.
When
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
realized that, there's Harold Lloyd
Yeah.
movies, which is super underappreciated. Harold Lloyd.
No,
But he's
Harold Lloyd
iconic.
is my favorite of the big four silent comedians.
Right.
He's my favorite. I like that nerdy shopkeeper look and just he's some
the glasses or the boy
yeah.
character.
Yeah.
It's funny because just like all of them, they kind of came out with personas and they kept working at them. Like Charlie Chaplin,
Yes.
if you see he did some early stuff with Fatty Arbuckle, like 1914, something called The Rounders, and he's playing just like a drunken, like, who left the opera, red nose, doesn't look like the Tramp, and that's just who he is. But the question is, and this in watching Inglourious Bastards, which again, after the Sergio Leone documentary, they talked briefly about Max Linder. And I only know a little bit of Max Linder stuff, but he is the inspiration for all the silent comedians. He predates them. And he's the one.
Was he a vaudeville guy?
I think he started as vaudeville, but he's early silent films.
Okay.
Most famously, the easiest thing you'll find is called 7 Years Bad Luck, I think. And he's the one who invented the mirror scene, where there's no mirror there, but the two people are the one person's trying to mimic the other person to pretend like it's their reflection.
Yeah, doing it. Yeah,
he was just a silent comedian, very infamously, and his career tapered off, and he ended up committing suicide. It's all terrible, tragic stuff. But like Charlie Chaplin, who everybody would give all the praise to because he's the most known, tried to resurrect his career because of how important he was to Chaplin's comedy stylings. But all the silent comedians say the same thing. So you have Max Linder and Fatty Arbuckle, who are both had the saddest people in the comedy story, in the history of comedy, like these terrible stories of how they were treated or tossed aside or whatever it is, even though they're the reason that our comedy is where it is now. I could talk forever on silent comedy.
Right. And I'm a big Fatty Arbuckle fan. I think he got railroaded. I think he got a raw deal in that whole thing. I've actually read a couple of the biographies about the time, and but I don't want to take anything away from like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin.
No.
They're all great. But Charlie Chaplin is it's super hard to reconcile who he was as a person.
Right.
Wasn't the greatest guy. Super funny. Fatty Arbuckle has that shadow. Buster Keaton was maybe a little bit favored the Confederacy. Like there's some dark. Harold Lloyd doesn't have much.
Harold Lloyd. The speculation is that he might have dozens of illegitimate children out there.
See, I'm okay with it as long as he paid for them.
Yeah, I
I
don't.
guess that's really good. Then.
Harold Lloyd. The question I've always had, and this is what my wife and I love Harold Lloyd. There's some information out there. His daughter and granddaughter, I think, or whatever, Suzanne Lloyd, they keep a pretty tight rein on the Harold Lloyd film library. The reason Harold Lloyd stuff isn't out there and hasn't been out there so much is that he retained the rights to most of his stuff and lost a lot of it in a fire at his house, whatever, but he retained so much of his own stuff and wouldn't allow it to be put into documentaries about silent comedies and things like that, because he was preserving his own image. He made his own documentaries about his stuff. I don't know how much he suffered in notoriety because of that, but he's at least as good. He's definitely my absolute favorite, but there's just not as much out there. And then it begs the question, why is there no Harold Lloyd biopic? And then it made me think, why is there no absolutely honest Three Stooges biopic? Who the F were the Three Stooges when they weren't performing?
Well, so guys? You know? I want like Chaplin has a pretty good biopic that Robert Downey Jr. did. That one's pretty good.
He's really good.
Where's the Fatty Arbuckle? Where's the Buster Keaton? Yep. Where's the Marx Brothers?
Yep.
There are some titans of the formation of comedy that, unless you're going to crack a book, which we are willing to do, but to get them to the mass,
if it's out there's less than you think.
There's less than, absolutely, there's less than, but we're more likely to know something because we'll crack a book. But to get it open to the masses, to get the younger generation to know who Harold Lloyd was, we kind of need that documentary, that biopic on them to open it up for another generation. And I don't mean that to say that we're so much better because we'll read a book. We're just a different generation.
There's at least a couple of documentaries on Buster Keaton. Decent documentaries, at least. I'd like to see a biopic that's cast really well, and all those things are amazing.
Yeah.
But at least there's some documentary stuff out there with some classic footage and stuff.
Come on, Will Sasso as Curly is great. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Again.
The Three Stooges, the Three Stooges movie we got was great for silly comedy. It was not a biopic. It was not a who were the Howard brothers.
Yeah, I want to find out. Like, did you know
the Horowitzes that they really were?
That Curly had health problems and left.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He originally it was Shemp, one of the brothers, and Mo and Larry, who was just a friend. And then Shemp didn't want to do so much. He was nervous, so Curly came in and took over until he had health problems. And Shemp took back over, right?
And then they had Curly Joe Dorita.
Yeah, we're way past. Yeah. If you're looking, if you're in the 1950s, in the 1960s, you've gone too far.
Again, we're nerds, so we go a little deeper.
But they're one of my favorite pieces of trivia, and there's not much known, is that Curly makes an appearance in a Shemp as a man on a train that they fuck with on the train, and it's the only time that he's ever he came back just for that scene. He has hair, so you can't recognize him very well, but that is a brilliant little piece of trivia. How come that stuff's not out there in a biopic? You know?
That's what I want, and that's what I'd love to see. I want. Why did Chico not talk? Why did I want that?
Yeah,
Harpo
didn't talk.
Why did Chico leave?
Right. Well, Chico owed money to everybody. That much I do know. And that's because the fortunate thing with the Marx Brothers, I love the Marx Brothers, is that Groucho survived for so long and was so willing to do interviews.
And he was a talker
about everybody.
He was a talker. Yes.
I always thought he was Chico for other reasons. No, it's because he was a womanizer and he loved women and he loved chasing skirts. You know, that's phenomenal. But again, why aren't these titans of comedy given the same respect that
precisely
Chaplin got? They deserve it, or compile all of it into one movie about early silent comedy. I'll watch all of that.
Give me some Mabel Normand in there. Give me the
Throw some references in. Like nobody else cared about the movie, but did you see Babylon?
I want to. I just I got so much negativity that I
love it. I loved it so much. I watched it late night by myself. Damien Chazelle. I watched it
Yeah.
late night by myself, and then watched it with my wife the very next morning because I had to
All
have her
right.
watch it. Now, there's a decent amount of it that is dealing with the silent era
Mm-hmm.
that is
Yeah.
phenomenal and worth watching because they're showing the crudeness of the original film industry, where people are getting literally killed on these massive sets
Oh, yeah.
in the middle of the desert. Like, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
brilliant for some of that stuff, and then a lot of it, yeah, I don't know, it's insanely good, and I'm bummed that more people don't like it. You should watch it. As a film fan, you will get it. I think some people don't. And it's the coolest, wildest Hollywood sex party I've ever seen. It's at the beginning, and I think I grew up in the wrong time when they had giant punch bowls full of cocaine and just people having sex everywhere. And then somebody brings an elephant into the room. Like, I am at the wrong parties as a kid.
Wait a minute. His name is Fatty Arbuckle. He was not an elephant.
No, he's in it too. They do have a little side piece where he's talking about how he because he liked peeing on women, and that was very sexually promiscuous. But consenting people were doing all these things.
He was not just doing. Speaking of that, the darker side, I would love to see also like a really well done Eddie Mannix biopic. Eddie Mannix being the original Hollywood fixer.
Yeah,
the fixer. Really, I want to see a really good.
Not the Hail Caesar version with.
Don't get me wrong. Hail Caesar thought it was hilarious. Love that movie.
Did I say Josh Brolin or Josh?
You did. You said Daddy. You said Daddy. All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the end today. So keep in mind next week. And top 10 tearjerkers, but not traditional tearjerkers. Tearjerkers for us. All right. Let's step away for a minute. We'll come right back and put the closing touches onto this one.
I'll grab a tissue.
So that's going to wrap up today's episode of Real Talk. Thank you so much for hanging out with us as we ran through everything from Red Sonja swinging swords to Howard the Duck being, well, he was Howard the Duck. He was a sex machine. To Starfleet boldly or kind of going where no one had gone before. And even a deep dive into the life of the Sergio Leone. It's always fun to bounce between genres, decades, and tones like this. And I think that's what makes movies a lot of fun. There's always something new or weird or unexpected moving around every corner, right? So next week, though, we're going to change it up. We're going to go a little more emotional, diving into the movies that make us cry. So if you've got a favorite untraditional tearjerker, definitely let us know. And of course, we couldn't resist ending today's show with a little love for the legends. Silent comedy. Chaplin, Keaton, Lloyd, Arbuckle. Because honestly, that's where the comedy of today started. You can see a lot of those mirrored in there. So check those out. But always, thank you so much for listening to us. Don't forget to follow us, leave a review, tell your fellow movie lovers about us. It's so important.
Validate us. Please.
Please. We get so lonely out here all alone. So, and find us. We're on the socials a little bit. We're on Instagram, Threads, at Real Talk. We're also on YouTube. All of our podcasts are there as well. But for now, until next time,
kick back, grab some snacks, relax,
and watch some movies.
See y'all.
Whispers tight, dim the streets in moonlight bright. antique the legends in our sight. Every frame a layer appeal. Truth and intrigue are revealed. Fan the flames of black and white. The mystery dances in the night. Casablanca to the crime. In every score we find a rhyme. The real talk where voices play with velvet words and moonlight bright. With velvet world we pull apart. Real by real we pull apart. The real talk where voices play with velvet words and starlit sway. With velvet worlds and starlit sway. Real by real we pull apart. The real talk where voices play with velvet words and starlit sway. Reviewing tales both light and dark. Classic films that leave a mark.